Hello, tribe. Thank you so much for joining us. It's Rose. I'm your creative guide and the creative spirit behind Wild Rose Bohemian. Today I've got some fun tags creation for you. Learn a little bit about fringe, about adding charms or a window space, a hanging item to your tags, and some beading. We'll even dive into my unique take here on paper clips. All of this is inspired by the April 2024 subscription kit, which is a bohemian-themed journal, and it really mixes a unique style, and I really want to explain the difference because some of you may be a little confused. For me, there's two traditions, and they lend to my difference between my two grandmothers. One who was a Romani gypsy, and so much of what she's gifted me is magic and the strength of letting go of all of our worldly possessions and journeying into the forest and finding magical things and being willing to sacrifice for what we believe in. Just showing you some of the pieces here that come with it. And then the other side of me, which is also my grandmother. She was a Cherokee Indian, deeply, deeply, deeply connected to the earth. And she serves as my close guide. And so I wanted to kind of honor both in this tradition. And then there's my mother. I was born in 1969, so she very much was a bohemian in this style. So I'm wanting to create more in the modern, tribal elements. Has a little bit of a mix of 60s feel, freedom, and journeying into our own soul, the core of who we are, and our own artistic expression. That's what I hope to inspire in you. A lot of these are the same here. Yeah. So what I hope you'll do is join me. Just join me as we create some tags and work on our bohemian theme journal for the month of April. Again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, let's get started. I invite you to craft along with me. I'm going to show you what tools I'm going to be using today. And most of the tools here are they're the most basic ones that I use anyways in junk journaling. So these same tools are probably going to be the same supplies or the same tools for almost every video. And I'm not particular on brand, and I just want to show you these are some of the basics, and I do believe you can get started with just scissors and glue and paper. But if you're going to expand your tools to make things a little bit different, or you want to try them, you can do that. Here's what I'm using today. I'm going to use two selections of glue, the Barely Art Craft Precision Glue and the Fabri-Tac. Both of these dry extremely fast. And one thing that is so important for me in junk journaling is that this has a very small, precise tip. It means that I can apply just a minimal amount of glue so that it doesn't spread very far. And when I'm making things like pockets or things that get tucked into each other that have to fit really well, I don't want any excess buckling or bulging where the glue is. So I use as little glue as possible, and that glue dries quick and it dries fast. The other thing I'm going to be using, I'm going to use some corner punches to help me with the decorative edges of the things I create. I'm going to be using a paper trimmer, and this is not even an expensive one. I do a lot of ripping. That's just personally me, in which case I do have some rulers. One has a like a torn edge look. I am also going to be using scissors. These are my favorite scissors. Of course, they're Tim Holtz. Who doesn't love everything Tim Holtz? I'm also going to be using a bone folder. And then more specifically to this project, I'm going to be using 2 paper punches, a 1.5 inch and a 2-inch paper punch. I believe you could use any 2 circular paper punches that are a 1/2 inch apart. You may also, choose to cut yours out by hand. That'll work too. I'm using this is probably some of my favorite tape, this Echo brand craft tape. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'd do without it. It is so strong, and it's what I use. This is going to be the cover for my journal. This is just Amazon packaging, and I believe the Amazon packaging is stronger than just the cardboard, and it's more flexible too, so I actually prefer it. But what I do with the craft tape is to seal up the edges often here, and I'll show you how I'm going to use them to back my tags too. So if you don't have this and you would prefer to just use cardboard, you will need something to strengthen the paper that you cut out for the back of your tags. I'm also using a couple of hole punches. This is a smaller hole punch, and I actually prefer this one, like if I'm poking holes for sewing. I'm going to use an awl, a very small crochet hook, and I love this. It's a We Are Memory Keepers. I don't even know what it is, to be honest with you, but I use it to do my bindings, and I use it to like poke holes for the hand stitching. That's mostly what I love it for. Again, not necessary, just makes life a little bit easier. You'll need, if you're going to do any beading, you'll need some beading tools, needles for beading. If you're not doing beading, don't worry about the needle. You can do everything with a crochet hook and the lost the name for that one right now. Okay. If you're going to do any jewelry work, which I have some beads as part of what I have, that's why I grabbed that out. These are some of the things that I may include. So I grabbed out my pliers for working with metal. One of the other most important things that I should have mentioned before I got to the more specific things for the project is some ink. And I'll tell you that I really like the Distress Oxide ink in the colors, not so much for aging the edges or distressing the edges, but for creating color on the background of the art that I'm working on, and also to like enhance and create continuity. I've chosen 2 colors I believe go with my kit that I'm working with, and so I will only use these 2 colors as a way of uniting the very many textures and colors, patterns that are in the bohemian style. That's one way, that's a tip. Let's call that tip number 1 on working with the bohemian style, is to choose 2 colors that are going to remain a constant, that you're going to emphasize in every single one of the items that you create, including your pages. So I'm going to work with that. And then the last thing that you need if you want to do some fringe that looks like the macrame fringe is some macrame cord. And the macrame cord will do something like this. It frays. It's not just regular string. This was like $5 on Amazon, but that was a couple of years ago, so I don't know what it is now. I'm going to suggest that you use what you have and that you don't go through the process of buying a bunch of things unless the process of that inspires you. And sometimes that can, but I don't believe that purchasing or having more choice makes us more creative. I actually think the fewer choices we have, for me, really enhances my creativity. So with that said, those are the materials that I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'll share a little bit about my decision making process. Okay, well, let's start with, at least we'll do one tag. We may have time for two, or I may end up having to split it into two videos. I'm not sure. I want to explain a little bit about my decision-making process as I'm creating a tag. And really, this process I'm sharing with you is just mine. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just mine, and I want to give you just a little bit of insight into how I make decisions, why I make decisions, and what my process is as I'm creating, because that may help you and may take some of the fear and the stigma that's there about making creative choice. A lot of the people that I'm friends with that don't do art at all, maybe you're someone that does it all the time and this is not that big of a deal for you. And if it's not a big deal to you and my decision process is not of interest, I'm going to go ahead and mark the chapters, and you can go ahead and just flash forward to the tag creation. I'll list those chapters at any point so that you can pick and choose what you want to watch and what you don't want to watch. I know for me, sometimes I have such little time that I really just want to know the most important information. So I'm cool if that's what you want. And if you want a more in-depth explanation, stay tuned here. I'm going to give you a little bit on my decision-making process. The first thing I do is definitely I pick a background. Okay. And for this tag, I've chosen this background. And I've also decided, first of all, picking the background, what the function will be of the tag. Is it just to tuck in somewhere? Is it meant to be interactive? Is it meant to be a paperclip? Is it meant to fold over? Because sometimes the tag could have multiple uses, right? It could like flip in our journal like this. It could flip like this. It could slide into a pocket. There's a lot of things that a tag could do. So the next thing I do is look at what the functionality is and what I would like to have happen with the tag. This particular tag I chose to make into like a double-sided paper clip. And so, and also because I want to add some stitching. So the next thing I might think about, besides the functionality, is what elements do I want to add into the structure of the tag so that I can have the tag serve the purpose that I'd like. Nothing gets me frustrated more than like if I get down to going, oh my gosh, I really want something along here and I want to sew, but I've not made something structurally sound enough to be able to sew on it. And so this one here, because I do not have a sewing machine, this one I want to do some kind of fringe, and the fringe will probably, I don't know. Here's an example. I've shown you the examples. I'm going to want to do some sewing on the bottom. Okay, that's what I'm going to want to do. So I'm going to want to pay attention to that. And because of those two things, then I know that there's a couple of additional things that I'll need. I'm going to put some craft tape on the back of this tag here, which I've done already. You can see it's just this craft tape. I've taped the back of my tag with this because It's actually even stronger than cardboard, but I like the flexibility of it because it still feels like fabric. That's really appealing to me. Matters less so on this type of big tag, but it still, to me, still has a little bit more of an organic feel than a piece of cardboard. So I'm going to do that. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is know that I need a couple other additional things if I'm going to do a paper clip. So what I'll need if I'm going to do a paper clip is I'm going to need a paper clip. And because this is a large size tag, I think these tags here I cut at, let's see, actually, yeah, they're big. So they're 3.5 by probably 6.5. But they're big enough that I'm going to use these paper clips, and the paper clips are about 4 inches. So I'm going to use this big paper clip, and I'm going to need a background for my tag, and they'll need to match. So what I'll need to do here is also make sure that my background is going to match. So I need to trim my paper. I chose a background page, but I hadn't trimmed my paper yet. So I'm going to trim the paper. Okay, so I've got those that match. And then most oftentimes I see people do a paper clip and it's even on both sides. My paper clip is not, because I don't want to take up that much real estate in my junk journal. I want one side to have a big tag, but the other side maybe not so much, and maybe something to tuck something under. So what I've done is create a piece of cardboard, and it's double the length of this, and I've folded it in half. What I want to do here is note that this long, see the piece that's longer? I'm going to want it to go in between here, in between the long part, so that now, see, the long part is down here and it's hidden by the longer part of the tag. I want to make sure that I use the shorter part of the tag with my cardboard. And I only cut out this portion here because I opted that I thought what I'm going to do is just make it simple and use one of the tags that's included in the kit. And I cut out the bottom part of that. So I'm going to go ahead right now as we're moving through this and glue that together. It looks like I might need to just barely adjust this here. Okay, I've left a little bit more on the back so that it actually fit this whole tag here. I'm going to ink it before I put it on. I may decorate it a little more after I get it done. I'm using Villainous Potion and Chipped Sapphire in this kit to distress and to like make my edges pop. So I really like with cardboard, I feel like it's so important to get the edges of the cardboard because it really it camouflages the edge of the tag itself. And yeah, I just like the way it makes it look better when it pops like that. Okay, so I've done that. And then what you're going to do This is the shorter part of the paper clip, remember? So the longer part is here. You're just going to slide it using this as a guide here. And I want to leave just a little bit open here because I'm going to attach a charm at the end. But what we'll do is we'll get this as centered as possible and make sure that it doesn't go down into this open spot and that a tiny spot is left there. And then I'm going to use Fabri-Tac glue because it dries fast and because it seems to hold just a little better. The cardboard can be hard to get it to glue, so sometimes I have to do it a couple of times. But I'm going to do that. Take this out so that I can push it together. Ooh, I think I may need to clip that together. So I'm going to grab a clip very quick. Try and think of it all before you get started, but sure thing, thinking about it all is not helpful if you forget things as often as I do. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Yeah, sorry for taking off. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to put this, just want to feel like it's important to help it to dry. So I'm going to set that aside while I make the rest of my tag here. So if you recall, this is the front and this is the back. And let's see, the first thing I want to do is decide, do I want to add this fringe element on the bottom? And if so, I'm going to make the holes for that because I want to allow for that in my design as I'm thinking about the limits on where I place things. So let's see. What I do, you can use a hole puncher if you want to punch holes for it, but I like the size of this and I like the tool itself. What I generally do is center this in between some holes, and if I punch all the way in this first one, it's very close to the edge, and then I like punching in the second one because it's not as quite as close to the edge, and so it'll hold just a little bit more of a tassel. So I'm just going to go ahead there and punch my holes. And I'm punching in this one every single hole that's there. I don't know if you can see this or not here, but now it's got holes all along the bottom there. Let's see, and now I'm going to go ahead and put these two things together. Okay, so now I've got everything kind of glued in on either side, and I went ahead and paid attention to my edges here and cut the corners, and I inked the edges. So just before I assembled these, I had made sure that I knew where the holes were. So you can either punch both thicknesses now, or you can use this as a guide, and I actually find it easier for me to use this as a guide. So if I'm going to do a fairly thin, like an embroidery thread, I'm going to go ahead and use this to punch it through. But if I were to be using something thicker like the macrame cord, I might need a bigger hole, in which case I might use something like this, or I might actually use my hole punch, and I'll show you a little bit later on how you do the macrame tassel edge, because it requires a little bit bigger hole. But for now, I'm just going to use that particular hole, and I'm going to use a threading needle. They're pretty easy to find. These are they Hildy and Joe flexible beading needle. Okay, something like that. And then I also have pad. Yeah, I do have it in here. I have a, actually I may use, yeah, I use this threader. You can see, I don't know if you can see, it's got a big opening in it. It'll make it easier for me to thread the hole. If I had different beading needles that have a bigger circle in them, it might be easier for me to do, but I don't. So I'm going to use the threader. I'm going to go ahead and get it ready for my thread here and set it aside. What I'm going to need is, count my holes. I believe here there's 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 12. So I'm going to need to cut myself 12 pieces of embroidery thread, and they will be, let's see, yep, they will be 9.5 inches long each. Okay, and so what you do is, this is 9.5 inches here, you fold it in half twice, so that what you end up with is 2 strands, but when they're folded they become 4. See here, oops. And if you, what you were going to do is add a bead, you could do that at this point now, and I may go ahead and show you that. But you can see that all you do to thread it is you thread it through the little loop. Oops, my goodness. So now it's on my embroidery thread, my needle. And because I do want to have a little bit, I will have some, let's put beads on this one. I'll show you what to do when you put a bead on, just for simplicity's sake. So before you poke it through your hole, what you're gonna do is go ahead and choose your bead. I'm gonna choose this bead. I'm gonna pull it on, and I'm gonna, whoops. Pull this through so that it's only on oops, 2 of the, let's see if you can see that. It's only on 2 of the portion there. So it's like going through one side. So all you do really is take that and you come from the back and you pull it through, kind of watching your bead. And I bet you there's like a simpler, easier way. And if you know how to do that, awesome. I don't spend a lot of time doing this type of beading, and this is really just what I put together that works for me. Okay, so you can see there, I've come through there, and because I'm using a bead, I'm just gonna go back through the hole with my beading needle and pull the embroidery thread out this side. What I'm going to want to do at this point is just spend a little bit of time to even them up, even the ends up, probably like that, and you can see it ends up looking about like that. And all I'm going to do right now is just add in a little bit of Barely art glue into the center here, so that the bead will stay on. I may later tie a knot, but for now, no. And I'm going to do that same thing to all of the different holes here. I'm going to turn the camera off and do that so that you do not have to suffer through that part of things. But that's essentially how you would do a bead for a tassel. Okay, I have completed the trim work here with the beads, and I did notice that I didn't quite get the tassels centered here on the tag. I thought I had done that. Usually pretty particular about that, so make sure that your the holes that you poke are centered here on your tab. And part of what might have happened is that I trimmed my tag and then I was kind of in trouble. So with that said, it might be better to poke the holes after the trimming. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, it's really totally optional, and depends on the way you like it, but oftentimes this kind of tassel is frayed and picked out. So if you like that look, you could spend the time to kind of comb these out and to be more specific about the fringe itself. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing that because what I want to do is show you the layout of this tag. So I'm just going to briefly talk through with you my process on creating the tag. It's really actually pretty simple collage process. So if you're comfortable with collage, this shouldn't be a big deal to you. But what I'm going to do, I think I've chosen this girl as my focal point. So I'm going to just lay her out there. And I think I might include some background paper like that. But I want to see how this edge kind of fades into that. I want it to pop a little more, so I think I'm going to use something that's lighter that pops on the edge of the, see if I like that too, so I may add that in there a little bit. Yeah, I think so. So I just like basically lay it out in a very kind of loose way. It's probably the best way to do the same thing here. I think I'm going to repeat that a little bit there. I've got a ticket I want to include probably here, and maybe even some floral pieces. I'm not sure. I think I want it to look approximately kind of like that. I also need a sentiment. So I made the sentiment holder, or this doesn't have to be a sentiment holder, but it's part of what comes with the subscription kit. And I just made it up with double pockets, and then I decided to keep my sentiments in it because it seemed to work well. I just tucked them in there. So there's a pocket here. Oh, one here and one here. Back here too. So to just get tucked in the journal when I'm completed it for the new owner. Yeah, I think I'm gonna choose this one right here, Arise. Okay, so I think I have my loose idea of what I'm gonna do for my layout. I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to spend the time inking it, and I'm going to glue down my background pages. Hi friends, let's take a quick look at the tag that we created inside of the journal. This is my Bohemian journal that is getting in the process. It's a good way to put it. I've got Amazon packaging for the front. I have not done the cover, but I have put the signatures together, and you can kind of see some of the pages here. I've used a lot of the background page that's included in the subscription kit. It's probably one of my favorite papers because it's so most versatile, and the bohemian theme is actually really quite challenging for some people because there are so many visual elements to coordinate and lots of different textures and colors, and it really lends to the freedom of expression of the individual artist. This is part of the Tarot Sorry Dreams paper. Here's the tag we created. So you notice that the one side is a little bit smaller, and it lends for a nice tuck spot somewhere. If you wanted to show you really quick, tuck something in there. So this page will still need to be completed. I'm just putting it in here just to show you, but I wanted you to see it's actually very beautiful inside of a journal. I love it because the fringe hangs off the edge, so it gives a visual element down below, and it also has a dangly that hangs off the top so that when the journal is closed, you'll get some, oops, it's not a great example, but you'll see that it's got some elements that'll hang outside of it. And I really love to pay attention to the edges, also not just the inside of the journal. But you can see it also here. Could be a belly band type of tuck spot. Anyways, I love it. So with that, let's keep creating. I wanted to show you how to create a fringe like this. Similar to this one, it can be cut shorter depending on your taste, and you can use thicker macrame cord. It's created with macrame cord. This is created with thicker macrame cord than this one. I have two thicknesses. You can also, with this same method, use some yarn, which is what I did here. I altered the yarn and then the embroidery thread on the edges. So it'll be your choice of material that you follow with this short method. I'm going to show you on how to do that. One of the things that is important to pay attention to is where you place your holes. Your holes have to be enough into your tag that it's strong enough to hold the fringe. And by that, I mean that, let's see, just for an example here, if we were to place the holes too close to the edge, the holes might pull out of the tag. So I'm going to actually probably attach them up. It's about 1/2 inch from the edge of the tag. Okay, and also I'm going to center my holes. So I'm going to make a center hole, and then the other holes will follow outward. I've covered the back of my tag with cardboard. You could use the Papercraft tape I've shown you before. Like I said, I use it a lot. But you also need the tag itself to be fairly strong if you're going to add some fringe like that, to be able to sustain the weight of the fringe and kind of the pull of the fringe. So all I'm going to do, I'm using it's a binding tool. I use it a lot actually, but I'm going to use it, and I'm going to make sure that I center this before I actually pop my holes. So all you do is you place it in, and it's a nice tool to have if this part of the process is something that makes you happy. And I would say that if it doesn't, don't do it, and just do the parts of the journal that make you happy. Maybe you're only creating tags, I'm not sure, but it's a suggestion to listen to your heart and do what your heart is asking you to do. So push that in. So all that does is it makes sure that what I have is an even edge and a good map of where to put my holes. This tag begs for a larger hole, so I'm going to use my hole punch. This is a small hole punch, and all I'm going to do is make sure that the top that has the part that punches down, I'm going to align that with the hole and make sure I've got it in the hole so that my hole punches are even. You could also use an awl that is a little bit bigger awl and make the hole the size that you would like. So now I've got a series of holes along the bottom to put my fringe in. What you'll need to do, again, I'm using macrame cord, and this is a little bit thinner cord than is on this one, but you choose what you like. And all I'm going to do is just look and see how long do I want it. You choose your length. I'm probably going to be, that would be plenty long for me. And I have to remember that the loop is going to come up and it's going to go through, so I'm going to just add a little bit onto it longer than I want and make a loop this way to make my measure. And I'll make my first one, and then because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes, I'm just going to do that 6 times so that I have even lengths for my fringe. Doing this makes less trim in the end. Now all I'm going to do, it's really a very simple process. I'm using the smallest crochet hook I have. This is a it's 0.75 millimeter crochet hook. We'll fold this like a loop, and all I'm going to do is pull it through the hole like that. and then I'm going to tuck the ends through the loop and pull it taut. Do that again. You could make the holes closer together if you wanted. Oops. One of the wonderful things about this macrame thread is that it's meant to fray, but that can also lend for sometimes that happening in this process, which is part of what I'm dealing with at the moment. It's not a big deal. I planned on fraying it anyway, but you can see, there you go. You could put your holes closer together if you wanted, which would create a more dense fringe. You could use thicker material. I think you could use lace. I think just about any choice of fabric would be amazing to do something like this with. So, okay, and that's all you do. I'm going to finish this off camera and then come back and show you what it looks like. You can see it goes pretty fast. Okay, I finished that up, and you can see that I've just taken a little bit of time to fray the edges too. All you do is you can use a metal comb too. That would comb this out a little bit more. If I had thicker string, use the thicker string, my frays would be bigger. So you can kind of get an idea based on what you'd like. This is what the fringe looks like with a thicker cord. Just what you prefer. Okay, let's move on and create a tag that has an element in it that really very near and dear to my heart. Oh, maybe. Just a minute. Okay, friends, I'm excited to share this next tag with you. This one here has an element of a hanging dangle in it. It also has a bead in the bottom. And I actually really love the look of this tag. I've had some pieces of jewelry that were my mom's before she passed away that I've wanted to use in some tags for like creating a memorial journal for her, and maybe even some gifts for some of her grandchildren, my grandchildren, that have things of hers in it. So this idea for a window in a tag could house a lot of things, like a cameo or a jewel. I thought about maybe in my Marie Antoinette journal, I might put like a cameo of Marie Antoinette, or a framed cabochon if you like to do those with making a charm. Anything that you might want to like showcase and enhance the dangle of it within your tag. So with no further ado, this is the one that I've chosen here. And I've chosen to use a background paper, which is the background paper included in the Bohemian subscription kit for April. And I've cut out a cardboard base. You will need a cardboard base for this tag because of the weight of this. If you used a smaller kind of dangle or something, then you might be able to get away with the craft tape. But this begs for the offset of the weight on some heavier cardboard. So got those two things, and then what I did is I wanted to be able to create a window that is reflective of the shape of my item I'm hanging in the window. So for this one, you can see I just traced out the shape of this. It gives me kind of a teardrop shape. Okay, so what I did was use a little bit of scrap paper to create a pattern. And what I did was draw that. And then what I wanted to do is just kind of basically give myself a little bit of a guideline here. Okay, so it'll look like that. And I'm going to fold this in half so that as I cut out my pattern, the pattern is even on both sides. Okay. And I'm going to not cut the inside out. I'm just going to cut the portion of the pattern that would go around the item hanging in the window. You can get an idea of what your window would look like here. Okay. And I'm actually pretty happy with that. This is also the pattern. Okay, so I have those two things to go from to create my hole over here. I'm going to decide how far down that I would like my item to hang and the positioning of the item on the tag. I'm going to measure how far down this is from the top. Looks like it's about, oh, about 1.5 inches down. Okay, and I'm going to find the center here of this paper. I'm going to do that by just pinching at the edge here and pinching at the edge here, but not all along the center area. Okay, I'm going to flip it over. So I'm going to do my drawing on the back and know that I'm going to draw a central line here, fairly light, and then what did we say, 1.5 inches? That is 2.5 inches actually, I think. Two and a half inches. Yeah, exactly, just about like that. Then I'm going to put this down as my template and draw around it. Cut it out. Yes, yay. Make sure that that's still gonna work. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna ink my edges of my tag. Use some neutral archival ink, the Distress Vintage Photo, to mark up these edges. And again, I've chosen this particular ink because it's fairly neutral and it just enhances and gives a little bit of pop to the paper I'm working with. It is one of the inks that I considered when I chose my inks for my project. I'm just going to move that up a little bit. And I'm not really doing my final inking job. I'm just getting some down so that I'm a little bit happier with things as I'm looking at it and working with it. Okay, perfect. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is to cut out the center. And you can see with my neurological condition, sometimes it makes it hard for me to draw anymore, which is a challenge. But that hasn't kept me from creating. So anyway, I just have to learn how to have patience for myself. So what we do here is cut this out. I'm using the Tim Holtz scissors. I have not found any scissors I like as much as these scissors. These scissors seem to cut through just about anything. I'm sure there are things it's too thick for, but really I've been able to use them on almost any project. There we go. Perfect. Good. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is pay attention to these edges and know that I want to finish my project with those images. I'm going to right now go ahead and cut those. I'm not sure if this paper cutter will cut this cardboard, but we're going to try it. Whoa. Okay. Check that one again. I'm using it from this side so I can see and make sure that I've got the edge in there away perfectly. See if this one will pop too. Ooh, there we go. More force than I would have liked. I'm going to do the same thing on my tag here. Pay attention to where it goes in. There. Okay. Here we go. More of matching. The next thing to do is to choose something that you can place behind your hanging element that keeps it from just falling through like this. There's a lot of different ideas that you could use. You could use some lace. I'm going to use some tulle. This is pretty thin. Yeah. What I'm going to do is make sure I've got that and then plan out my tag here on this side. So I'm going to need to have a hole for my jump ring to go through. And I think that probably the best tool for me to do with that is, excuse me, an awl or a hole punch, but I'm going to go ahead and just eyeball it here. And I'm going to put the jump ring in. Let's see if I can find one quickly. If not, I may have to do it off camera. Actually, I've decided maybe we won't use a jump ring. That may hang down too much. Yeah, it will be a jump ring. I'm going to find one of those and be right back. Here we go. I placed a jump ring in the hole, and then I hung my charm. Okay. Now I'm going to place my tool in the right place, which is that how you say it? Tool? I'm not sure. Okay. Make sure we've got that going, and I'm going to use some double-sided tape to tape this together. I like to get the double-sided tape right to the edge. I'm going on cardboard because it eliminates like pockets and ridges and things. It seals up the edge nice and tight. You use what you like, because I'm also going to use some glue too. So. The only thing I don't love about the double-sided tape is sometimes it takes a little bit for me to get it started. I don't know about you guys, if you know a trick. Let me know. Especially since my hands don't work the way I want all the time. Okay. There we go. Add some glue around here too, so that when I seal it up, the whole thing is sealed. Just going to use some Barely Arts glue. Pay really good attention, excuse me, to the edge here. On the top. And then you're going to apply your tool. A little more glue. And then be very careful with this top part and just place them together for sometimes with the craft tape it's hard because I didn't get that exact on there, exactly how it should, so now it's going to be big to be trimmed. This is okay. And you can see that, like, I am not perfect in the process. Things don't always turn out the way that I want them to. I have an idea and it doesn't come to fruition the way I want. I'm going to press down the glue too here, especially around these edges. Eliminate any wrinkles. There we go. The glue will dry. Okay, I'll be back in just a second with some of the embellishments. I don't know if I need to go through that process with you again, but I'm going to embellish it and let the tag dry and then show it off when it's finished. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is what the finished tag ended up looking like. And these are the tags we created in this video. Just showing you as a recap how to add some edges to your tags here and how to create. This is actually a paper clip with an alternative side. We hope we've inspired you some, maybe offered something unique that you haven't seen before, and we encourage you to start something new today. Try something new. Can't tell you how much we appreciate your kind words, your comments, your support, your likes, subscribe. All of those things make a huge difference in an artist's world. Even if it's not me that you do that for, I really encourage you to do that for someone today. I promise you the energy will be returned multifold. Anyways, thank you again for joining us, and stay tuned for the next bit. We'll offer a little more inspiration and creativity in some of the other tags that I've created. Hope you have a wonderful day.